Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to the Down South Salvation podcast. And this is going to be episode 3 of our Psalms and Soundwaves series. And for this week's guest, we have John Dibiase from Jesus Freak Hideout. So let me open us in prayer. O God, whom saints and angels delight to worship in heaven, be ever present with your servants who seek through art and music to perfect the praises offered by your people on earth, and grant to them even now glimpses of your beauty, and make them worthy at length to behold it unveiled forevermore, through Jesus Christ our Lord. Amen.
Amen. Thanks, Trevor.
Yes, sir. Typically, we tend to start it off with kind of having you walk us through, your faith journey and kind of how you got started doing what you're doing.
Sure. I mean, as long as I can remember, I've had faith in God. I'm Italian American, so I grew up Roman Catholic, actually. So I grew up in the church uh, at a young age, and it wasn't until I was about 13 that my mom had been watching a televangelist, and she um, gave her heart officially to Jesus in like the born again kind of way. Um, and then it kind of just trickled down to me and my older brother and my dad. And 3 years later, at the age of 16, I started Jesus Freak Hideout. We had like a couple of years before that, we went to a local Christian bookstore and like um, tried out different kinds of demo tapes and stuff like that back then. Um, to date me, that would be like mid 90s, 93 is when I got really serious about my faith, and I was 13. And yeah, and at first it's funny because like my parents loved 80s music and obviously and um oldies and stuff like that. So I remember we there was a magazine that they picked up at a local Christian bookstore, and it had a list of, if you like this mainstream band, you would like this Christian band. So there was a Christian band called Idol Cure that was like the very first Christian band we ever listened to, because they were listed as sounding like Foreigner, which is an old school 80s rock group. And so that was like our entry into Christian music. I started listening to Carmen and Petra and Audio Adrenaline, and then DC Talk and Newsboys, Dakota Motor Company, PFR, all the mid 90s greats. And on August 13th, 1996, we were going to go with a bunch of friends to school friends to a concert. It was Jars of Clay, and I don't know what inspired me to do it, but I decided to start a website that day. I remember being on angelfire.com. They had like a little um, tutorial on how to do HTML type stuff, and I had no clue. So it was really basic though, and really easy to learn. And I remember driving to the concert that day and being like, "Hey, Dad, I started a website." So yeah, it's this year will be 29 years. Kind of crazy.
Wow, 29 years. So first off, just to make you feel old, I was born in September of 96.
Oh gosh.
So if you didn't already feel old,
That's
we're just
awesome,
going to go
dude.
ahead and get that out of the way.
It's okay. It's funny. It is funny though. Like, I mean, I I don't even know when I transitioned necessarily from like feeling like the kid all the time to then all of a sudden feeling old. But it's stuff like that, yeah. And not to
well,
make you feel
I'll,
young, but like it's crazy.
well, I'll tell you this: the kids at the youth group I help with make me feel old.
Really?
Yes,
Yeah.
because like it's finally got to the point now where I can't necessarily keep up with all the slang that they use.
Oh yeah, dude,
So then
totally.
I'm just like, what did that child just say? I am so confused. Should I be worried? Do I need to like have a conversation with them? Like, are they
Right.
okay?
And that's the funny thing is like we're at the age, even you, like. where you hear the new slang and you're like, that's so stupid. Like, when we were younger, it was like, oh, this is what's in, and we didn't really stop to think, oh, this is really stupid necessarily. And our parents are just like, what? But now I'm at that age too, where it's like,
They
my son,
the a couple
my
weeks
son,
ago we did this
yeah.
thing, right? I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, it's totally okay.
But this is just really funny. A couple weeks ago we did this thing at the youth group where we had the two oldest volunteers who are in their like 50s get on stage and read out all the new slang terms and
Oh,
try to use them in a sentence, and
oh,
it was so
cringy.
cringe, and it was hilarious, and I'm glad I wasn't one of the ones dragged up there.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, I know. Anytime that you see any kind of like a list of a breakdown of current slang that the youth are using today, um, it's embarrassing. It's embarrassing for anyone. Like I guess because I mean it's not even just this youth thing. And with the internet, it's like there's its own world of slang. So like it's easy to get exposed to it even if you're not a youth.
Yeah.
But then they still have their own thing. And my son's 14 and he'll come home from school and he'll be like, yeah, so they're saying this now and this means this. And I'm like, that's ridiculous. But that means this. It's like one of those things where they take a word that
Right? Thank you.
you're like, that word only means this. How could that possibly be used to be? It's like who's deciding what means what anymore?
Right, exactly. Oh gosh. I just realized me and you are both old enough to remember when the internet was completely different.
Yeah. 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 And and see that's the other thing that's like messes with my head. It's like I'm used to being the kid on the internet and now I'm the adult on the internet. It's just it's a weird thing getting older, to be honest with you.
We were
And
old
I'll hear
enough to remember when YouTube was still kind of new.
yes, I remember before YouTube. I was actually just explaining to my son, I'm like, yeah, I remember when I would try to download a video that was like 30 seconds long and it would take the entire evening. I distinctly remember we had dial-up, and I remember my parents, like my mom made dinner, and I set to download like a clip of like an audio drone music video or something, and then I went and ate dinner, and I came back, and it had only downloaded like a quarter of the way. And again, this was like a 20, 30 second low resolution clip. But that was our
240p.
yeah, if we were lucky, right?
Yeah. I do you remember when you transitioned from having dial up to having DSL and how
Oh
much of an
gosh.
improvement?
It was it was like it was magical. What's this sorcery?
Like I can use the phone and the internet at the same time.
Yes, that's right. It wasn't like, hey, is it okay if I hog the phone line for the next hour or so? Oh man, I used to get in so much trouble trying to play like a video game online or something, and my mom wants to use the phone.
Oh my gosh, all the people younger than me listening to this podcast episode are going to be totally lost by what just occurred. I
All right,
can just
guys.
feel it. Okay, before this turns into a nostalgia fest.
Right. My whole life's a nostalgia fest, but go ahead.
So, where did the name Jesus Freak Hideout come from? Is that a callback to DC Talk, or
Oh man, dude. Well, let's remember when it started. So August 1996 is less than a year since Jesus Freak came out. So at the time, I'm trying to think exactly the origin, but there was a Christian chat room,
Mhm.
and kids, these things called chat rooms. No, but like it's funny. I mean, before there was instant messenger, before there was text messaging, before there was all social media, really, there'd be chat rooms and you go in there and you meet people with like interests. So there was a Christian chat room, and you could create in this network you could create like a private chat room. So I used the name Jesus Freak as my handle, my screen name. And then people would ask you constantly, are you a male or female? And I'd be like, dang, okay, I'm Mr. Jesus Freak then. And then people would still ask male or female. I'm like, come on, why do you think I have Mr. in front of my name? Anyway, so I created a private chat room. I called it Jesus Freak Hideout. I don't even think I ever used it. So then when I created the website, I was like, I'll just call it Jesus Freak Hideout. Like, And I know that over the years people have hung up on the word hideout as in like, why are you encouraging Christians to hide out? And I'm like, nah, man, it's like a gathering place, like it sounds better than central or hangout or whatever. But the bottom line is a 16-year-old came up with the name, and no offense to
Well,
any
I mean,
16-year-olds out there.
when I first heard Jesus Freak Hideout, I thought,
Yeah,
oh, kind of like how you would get together with your buddies in like an old treehouse or something back in the
there you
day.
go. Exactly. Yeah. It's like a safe haven for Christians who love music and stuff to get together and not hide out, but hang out, but
Right.
in their hideout.
Right, exactly. Okay, so like walk me through how the site has evolved over the years. Obviously, you started it when you were 16, so I
Yeah.
assume it's improved in quality since.
I hope so. I really hope so. Now, the problem with having being, like the kid who created it, like, and then maintained it throughout the years is for a long time, it was 100% I'm responsible for all of it. And that was exhausting. And I mean, we're talking since I've been running it, I was a teenager, a sophomore in high school, then all through college, through dating, through engagement, through marriage, through trying to, figure out like having a real job, through becoming a dad, so like it's a lot of time to try to figure out how to continue this thing and evolve it so that I can still live and pay my bills and still do a Christian website. And right now it's all because my wife's a nurse and she loves her job, and so that makes it easy to not easy, but it makes it possible to keep this thing going. But anyway, how it has evolved is so I started it on a website called angelfire.com, which was they just gave out free websites. You could sign up for a website. It probably had like a 5 megabyte limit or something crazy like that for the size of the site. And as the site, as I kept working on it and it kept growing, I would just sign up for another new website and link it. So, um, so JFH was connected to all these other little websites to create one bigger one. And in 1998, Forefront Records, which had DC Talk on it,
Mm-hmm.
and Audio Adrenaline, Rebecca St. James, bands like that. They contacted me and they're like, "Hey, we'd like to work together." And I'm like, "Okay." And the guy running it at the time, or at least the marketing, had this idea that with DC Talk's 1998 Supernatural album coming out, they would do a grassroots promotion with us. And they would quote unquote leak the music to us, and we would leak the music online, like clips, I think. And um, and he's like, all right, in exchange for that, we'll give you space on our server. Um, and you can move the site jesusfreakout.com over to that. And I'm like, oh, cool. So they actually bought the domain name for us, jesusfreakout.com, and gave us some web space. And the guy said, after the promotion's done, we'll turn the rights over to you. And, that'd be great. And I'm like, cool, that sounds awesome. Like, I'm 18 years old. I don't think I had a job yet. And I don't got money. So that sounded like a great idea. Plus, it's the Christian music industry. We're all believers. What could possibly go wrong? Right?
Famous last
Well,
words.
famous last words. So the only thing I could think of is that they assumed that a kid wasn't going to keep doing this. So they gave me a really hard time for about 2 years. I wanted the rights to my own domain name and the site and everything, and they refused to give it to me. Um, so yeah, it was at least 2 years. And finally, the guy who had run the promotion, he had gotten promoted after the DC Talk thing, and he had put someone else in charge. So I didn't even I wasn't even talking to the guy who had set the whole thing up. The guy who was in his place just kept giving me the runaround, kept saying stuff like, "Well, I can't promise that you'd be able to even have forefront artist stuff on your website if you left our server." And I'm like, oh, well, that just doesn't sound right, but whatever. And at the time, you have to think that like music on the internet, no one knew what that meant. No one knew what that was like. No one knew what the rules were.
Right.
That was like even probably before music file sharing, like Napster and um, all those. I can't remember what they were. There was another one, I think, but like where music piracy really started to take off. It was before that. But they were, people could just say whatever they wanted to. There was actually a time, I think around 99, 2000, that I asked a record label to send me an album, and they're like, "We don't think the internet's a viable source of media." Like, like that's all that's left, you know what I mean? Like, it's crazy, but and I can understand that people just didn't know what it was at the time and what it meant, and what the future looked like. So, anyway, to try to make an extremely long story slightly shorter, would be that I guess, I eventually got the rights to the site and the access to the server or whatever, and I just kept over time kind of adding to the site and building it and trying to make it work with the evolution of the internet. And I'm not a programmer. And that's the difficult part for me is, I can do graphic design and some web design, but I'm not a programmer. So I tried to learn some programming and I just couldn't do it. I'm an artist, so like the mathematical aspects of web development just do not work with my brain. And so I had some help with certain things over the years, or I would find a tutorial or pre-written code and then try to learn how to manipulate it. Um, but I mean, like the site has only been responsive. I don't know if you know what that means, but like when it responds to the size of a browser, changing, or mobile versus web browser, like site's only been responsive since I think 2018. And I spent a couple months trying to figure that out myself and then do it. But people would ask me that for a couple years before then, like, when are you going to make it responsive? And the first time I ever heard the word responsive, I thought someone was being like, basically saying, when is your site going to respond to a request to load? And I'm like, come on, man, it loads. Like, what are you talking about? Um, but anyway,
Actually, you
it's
know
been,
what? Now that you mentioned that, I do recall a couple years ago when I would pull it up on my smartphone and it would kind of look a little bit janky. I'm not gonna lie.
no, yeah, that's not I mean, that's all me. That's all my
I've
fault.
never had
But
a word to kind of put to that,
yeah,
but now I have a word. So I'm
yes,
also, in case I'm not a programmer either.
yeah.
I guess I'm definitely more on the artistic side of things. It's just I don't do visual art. This
Hmm.
what we're doing right now is kind of, I guess, my art form in a way.
Yeah, totally.
So I can relate because I was going to college for computer science, and I quickly
Oh yeah,
figured out that no,
not your cup of tea.
not my cup of tea. Took me about a semester, and I was like, yeah, we're gonna switch to
Yeah,
something else.
I hear you, and that's the thing. Like I majored in advertising design mainly because I wanted to do art. I didn't know what to do with it, and I picked advertising design over fine arts because there was like one less painting class. Like I was intimidated by painting, and I knew I just wanted to draw, and yeah, but that was one of those things where like I'm in it, I'm taking these classes, and I'm like, I don't want to do advertising design, like, and sometimes it takes just trying it out in school and classes to realize it's not what you want to do.
Yeah, that is true. So you mentioned that it started out as you just by yourself. I'm assuming that is not the case anymore. I'm assuming you have like a team or something to help you
I
with.
I do have a wonderful, amazing team of mainly writers these days. I mean, I still kind of do all the graphics myself. I do probably 95% of the site updating myself, if not more than that. It's gone through ebbs and flows of people being able to help, and it's mostly volunteer based support and um, forever for the whole time, including my own time. Really is in a lot of ways volunteer because I'm not really making a buck off of this.
Right.
And there was a short time when the music industry was doing well that I was able to take it full time. And we just had, labels were supportive with like advertising and stuff. But then, the piracy, music piracy really kind of took a toll on the music industry. I watched as entire marketing departments were just dissolved. And I felt like the people I would talk to at these record labels were almost like coworkers because I was talking to them on a regular basis about the new music coming out and how I can, how we can promote that and what we can do together.
Right.
And it was really cool. And then over what felt like a course of few months or something, they were pretty much all gone. And now it's all like outsourced and stuff. But um I eventually had to like so I was doing it full time uh maybe like 2006 to like 2015, I think. And it was just one of those things where like, all right, I gotta find other ways to supplement income, So I ended up like doing some part-time marketing work. But yeah, so and when I did that, actually, I had to let go more of the control to let other people pick up some slack to help with writing and some page updates and stuff like that. And because like from the beginning, it was weird because you're a kid, you start a website, you kind of use it as an outlet to post your opinions and what you like and stuff like that. So for the longest time, I wanted it to be a team, but it was really just me and a couple friends that would help out. So it was kind of like everyone I knew viewed it as like this is an extension of John,
Mm-hmm.
like it's not just Jesus Freak Hideout, it's John's website. So over the years, it's really nice that it's become its own thing and not just John's website. But for the longest time, I mean, especially locally, I'd go to concerts and no one's ever heard of it. And um, it was really nice as it really slowly like artists would know about it and labels would know about it you know um and I'd get meet more and more people that actually knew about it, which was great. But yeah, I mean, it wouldn't be where it is now without the team of people who have helped throughout the years, and I'm super, super grateful and thankful for them and for all the help. Um, but it's definitely been like a revolving door to some degree. I mean, not like that makes it sound like it's constant, but like if you look at the 29 years, yeah, it's been, periods
Right.
of people will just funnel in and out because, I've had help who were like, teenagers and then they go to college and get married and they move on to something else and it's awesome, but it can be sad when people move on, but I totally get it.
Right. I got you. And it's the site's also gone from just being about music to also being about other things too, right? I mean, I think
Yeah.
y'all have a podcast section now, right?
Yep. Yep.
And y'all have
It's
a
been around for several
devotional
years.
section, and
Yep.
so like walk me through that. Was that all your idea, or is that something else some of the team suggested, or?
Sure. Um, well, devotionals, I believe it was around 1999 that I was still living at home and I asked my mom, I'm like, hey, you should write devotionals for my website. And I think she scoffed at it at first. And eventually she, I guess, prayed about it and came around to it and started writing devotionals for the site. And a couple of years later, she got interest from a publisher, wanted to publish the books, or I'm sorry, the devotionals as books. And so she goes by her maiden name Farrow as her last name. And she shortened her name to JM Farrow. That was all the publisher actually suggesting that she did that too, I think. And because her name's Joanne, so they're like, oh, if you do letters, like JM, I think they were probably thinking of like JK Rowling, like that whole
Yeah.
like big,
Yeah.
writers who you don't know if it's a man or a woman and that kind of thing. Um, uh, but it was also so that yeah, so that like anyone would buy the book and just not know that oh, this is written by a woman or whatever. And so yeah, so she had a couple of books published, and since then she didn't want to like publishers were like, oh well now we want another book like right away, and she's like I can't write that fast. These took years to write or whatever, and so she self-publishes stuff now. But anyway, so she ever since then has still regularly written and given us devotionals to post. Um, so I guess technically that was my idea, but I'm sure it was more of God being like, "Hey, all right, I have this idea. You asked your mom, you know." So I don't like to. I wouldn't necessarily consider that my idea. The podcast was something I would have loved to have done years and years ago. Basically, as soon as podcasts could like it started coming out. But the thing is, I'm an introvert, and
Right.
I didn't haven't felt. It's always been a struggle to do interviews, like going to show and interviewing a band or convention like a GMA type convention to interview artists. I mean, let's put it this way: an extrovert doesn't start a website at 16. In high school, an introverted kid does that. So, um, yeah. So I didn't think I could do my own show or whatever, and I wouldn't even know where to start. I knew I'd probably have anxiety about the whole thing or whatever. So it wasn't until I think Chase Tremaine stepped up and was like, "Hey, I'd like to do a podcast," and I'm like, "Okay, that sounds good." So um, that's been an awesome thing to have with us. And then the movie reviews, I just did it. It's one of those things where like I started the site, it could be whatever I want it to be. And in this very beginning, I mean, I remember posting stuff about baseball in like the very beginning of the site and just literally was whatever I wanted to post. So I think it was around like 97, 98. It was either the end of 97, beginning of 98, because I think it was Titanic was such a big movie at the time. And and I wanted to write something about it and mention how the content was pretty intense for PG-13. And that was kind of the beginning of writing movie reviews. And then for me personally, it's been easier to write those instead of music reviews.
Hmm.
And so I kind of transitioned to mainly write those because I love movies. It gives me an excuse to, well, let's put it this way, it gives me purpose to watching them. Uh, and hopefully, people get something out of them, I guess.
I got you. Well, now that you bring up movies, now I got to ask you, what's your favorite movie?
Ghostbusters, 1984 original movie.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow. You had that
Oh
ready.
yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
I'm sure if you looked around this room, there'd be plenty of evidence to
Well,
that.
yeah, I can see that. I can see like the one, two. There's at least three Ghostbusters figurines in the background in the
Oh,
boxes.
dude. Um,
Oh,
there's
oh, it's okay. There's okay. It's
yeah, it's bad. But yeah, it's it's
that.
everywhere.
By the way, is a very like banging room that you're in right now. Is that like your
Thank you.
office or
Thank you. This is my basement actually.
so the
My
man
office is
cave
not.
then
This
essentially?
is yeah, this is where I draw every night and get some chill time. So yeah,
Nice,
this is my nerd room
nice.
and my wife is cool with it. So that's awesome.
She's like, yeah,
But
you can
yeah.
have the basement. I'm taking the rest of the house. You're not picking the decor.
Oh man. It's funny, like even when we moved into our apartment, when we first got married, she was on night shift. So I went from living at my parents' house, and always having them around or my brother or whatever, to then being all by myself for hours. So I ended up doing a lot of the decorating in our apartment too. Like it was just kind of like, all right, I need this place to feel like a home. And it was nothing like this. I mean, this is crazy. But what's funny is I would say my bedroom as growing up was a small version of like this. I had flower wallpaper because the previous owners had daughters, whatever, and pink carpet. So I covered every inch of the flower wallpaper with Christian music posters and some movie posters, but mostly like advertisements from CCM magazine, cut them out and put them on the wall, and posters from the local Christian bookstore and stuff I got at concerts. So yeah, so this is yeah, I have a sickness, but whatever. At least Amy's okay with it.
Right, I gotcha. So, how do you determine what actually goes like when someone, let's say there's a band or whatever, how do you determine what actually makes it on the site? Like, is it,
You mean like content wise?
yeah, like content wise?
Dude, that has been almost 30 years of trying to figure that out. I mean, I think in the beginning it was a lot easier because it was like pretty much anything you'd buy at Christian bookstores or whatever, and from a Christian record label. And I would think it's probably around the time that like POD started making waves in the mainstream, but and that was before Switchfoot. I'm trying to think of other bands that were kind of like starting to, even DC Talking Newsboys tried to um what do you call it? Make it into break into the mainstream market. I remember Virgin Records signed, I think, Newsboys and DC Talk at one point just to like get those albums out, but I don't think they ever were able to make the transition. But anyway, it's always been I kind of like if anything is on Christian radio, I think is pretty much all right, we should cover that. Um, and that bit us in the butt with Evanescence. I don't know if you ever remember them or heard that name.
Uh, do I
Oh, that
remember
was,
Evanescence? Oh, come on, bro. Yes, I remember
dude, it was
Evanescence.
so bad that what happened. Like they were on Christian radio and then they put a record out in the mainstream and it did really well. And then we covered it, and then they said in an interview in a magazine that they didn't know how the bleep they got on Christian radio. And it's crazy because I think they had roots in Christian music, but they were trying to break from it, I guess. And so then at that point, you're like, okay, now do we cover them anymore? And I think at that point, we just quickly were like, all right, take them off the site. They don't want to be on it. We'll
Okay,
take them
so
off.
you know what? You know that brings up a very similar situation that happened much more recently. So,
Yeah.
Under Oath. What I mean, what?
Oh gosh.
Yeah, like what? I mean, obviously, y'all probably aren't going to cover Under Oath nowadays, but I mean,
No.
like, how did that like? How did y'all feel about that when that actually happened? Because I remember kind of being around the fan base a little bit when that actually happened.
Yeah, it's exhausting, man. And to be honest with you, it's exhausting like trying to it's like you become the CCM police. Like, oh, you're not Christian enough to be covered. And I was definitely way more strict about it years ago, but it's gotten so much harder to be where's the line? What defines it?
Right.
What defines what a Christian artist is? So, I mean, even the fact that we cover 21 Pilots I think a lot of people are probably like, why? And I know like those guys are Christians. They started out in Christian music in the underground in the indie scene, and I think a lot of people don't even know that. The drummer, he played with House of Heroes for a while, so like until I guess until they do something that's like either we really don't want this or they completely change their content, it's like, all right, I guess it's okay to cover. Just literally what's today, Saturday? I guess it was like 2 days ago.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I didn't even know about this, but the guys in Colony House, you know how it's like Stephen Chris Chapman's sons
Okay.
are in a band called Colony House. Apparently, they have a side band, and I didn't know about this, called Two Car Garage. And so the guys on staff were like, "Do we cover this?" And I'm like, "I don't know anything about it." And they're like, "The only problem is there's some language on it, like some profanity." And I'm like, "But why?" Like, then I guess maybe we're not bother with it then. Like, if they're not doing anything directly linked to the Christian industry, and their content is already out of the gate questionable, the only reason to cover it would be just because it's Stephen Chris Chapman's sons. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I'm just kind of like, I think we should probably not touch it, unless there's something comes out that we need to cover it. I think we're better off not covering it. And the tricky thing is like, there's already a lot of bands we don't even have time to write reviews for because there's just so much out there. And like, I mean, every worship album coming out, they're all very similar, but like, we don't even cover all of that because there's just so much of it. Um, But I don't know if that answers your question, but it's hard. It's really hard. There's been plenty of times that we're like, okay, these guys are safe to cover. Oh, what's their name? Darn. I'm drawing a blank. But there was another one that oh dang, it's gonna drive me nuts now. They're I can picture the lead singer girl is a redhead and she darn.
Uh,
Do you know who I'm talking about?
Oh my
Is it
gosh.
Haley something is the
Are
lead
you talking
singer?
about Paramore?
Thank you, Paramore. Yes, they did start out in Christian music too, you know?
Wait,
And
what?
that
Oh,
was
whoa, whoa, wait, back up, back
you
up,
didn't
back
know
up.
that?
No.
Yes, they started out in Christian music, and and that was one of those bands where that's a perfect example of when I would get emails that are like, "You should be covering Paramore because," and then they'd have all this huge argument, and then we'd give any amount of attention to it, and then I get all these emails saying, "Why are you covering Paramore? Paramore, you shouldn't cover them because of this," you know? And it was one of those things where I just felt like we were stuck between a rock and a hard place of like, I don't know. Then I guess we shouldn't cover them at all and just be like, all right, it's just too not taboo, but too controversial or whatever. Like it's not worth it either.
Right.
Like they don't need us to cover them. And the diehard fans don't need our validation or whatever. So I don't know. But yeah, Paramore started out in Christian music.
Okay.
Now, do you know that Katy Perry was Katie Hudson in Christian music?
I feel like I've heard that before,
Yeah, that's a weird one too, but at least she
but I'm gonna
changed
be
her
honest with
name.
you. I've never really much cared for Katy Perry's music to start with, so
I don't follow her. I don't care.
yeah.
I'm just mean as far as like names and artists and stuff go, but yeah, it's a weird thing. I'm sure a lot of people don't realize that that was a thing. And she dated Matt Thiessen of Relient K for a while for the whole Katy Perry thing.
Okay, and now you're telling me more information I didn't know.
Yeah.
Because I do
Well,
follow Reliant K. Reliant K is kind of my
yeah,
one of my jams.
nice. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I've heard rumors that they're going to do new music, and I hope that's true.
I hope it's true too. That's all I gotta say. I hope it's true because we need something. Doggone it.
Seriously.
Okay, so go back to what you've seen in the music industry and how it's changed. So, like,
Sure.
like, I mean, obviously, the big thing now is AI, right?
Oh
Naturally.
my goodness. Yeah.
But I mean, between when you started the website and now, what have you seen change aside from the market and stuff you just talked about?
Right. Um, I mean, being a 90s kid, um, I, like I feel like there was a lot, like music was a lot more organic. Now, there's a lot of people probably in the underground in the indie scene. There's a lot more like acoustic Americana. People really making just like raw music. Whereas in the 90s, I feel like that was a common thing in rock music and stuff. Electronic stuff had its place. That's not what I'm saying. I mean, like nowadays, it seems like everything's auto-tuned, everything's programmed. There's a lot of digital music making, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. But there's many times where, like, I prefer maybe raw rock to, what is it, new metal or whatever, there where it's a little more produced or whatever. Um, I don't know. I mean, music in general has changed a lot. Um, but I mean, I don't know necessarily feel like, and this is probably because I'm so close to the music I listened to as a teenager, but like, I don't necessarily feel like there's been such a dramatic musical stylistic change from like, let's say the 90s to the thousand to the 2000s or whatever, as there were from like the 60s and the 70s and to the 80s or whatever, you know what I mean? I think it's been more gradual. But
Hmm.
I guess if you put on like something that's on the radio now and then pop in something from the 90s, and you could probably tell. But even like a few years ago, it seemed like the 80s music was coming into modern music more like that. The trends and the style or whatever was influencing that. Um, but also the industry, you know what? Concerts have changed a lot too. Like I feel like there's a lot less like garage band,
Hmm.
small club. Well, at least in the Christian industry, there's a lot less like small shows. It seems like everything is bars and clubs. If it's which is ironic because in the 90s it was like Jars of Clay's in a bar. You can't go see them. Are they even Christian anymore? And we were all wondering that too. Anyway, like that was just a genuine question. And nowadays it's like, oh, cool. Need to Breathe is in the club, you know what I mean? And they're one of those bands that does well in the Christian music industry and the mainstream music industry. Um, But yeah, I mean, I miss going to like a church rec room rock show kind of thing, you know. I think they happen occasionally still, but they're just so much smaller.
Well, it's actually kind of funny that you bring that up because there's this guy who I interviewed. His episode drops tomorrow,
Oh,
um,
nice.
so you can always go and listen to it.
Sure.
But he's out in Detroit, and he's actually doing that exact thing that you're talking about right now. Yeah,
Really?
yeah. So I'll I'll get you if you want me to. I'll get you in touch later. It's not a
Sure.
problem,
I mean, I'm pretty far from Detroit, but
right?
but
Where are
that's
you
awesome.
actually at?
I am in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania.
Oh,
So the funny thing is, I started the site when I lived in Nazareth, Pennsylvania with my parents, and then I got married and moved to Bethlehem.
okay. Oh, so you're around a lot of Moravians up there then.
Yes, yeah, Moravian College or University, whatever it is really close.
Yeah, okay. My family, well, no, not my family. My wife's family, their heritage is Moravian. That's why I know
Oh,
that.
wow.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Small
So,
world.
small world. Yeah. Wow. So, okay. So now what are the plans for the future? Like obviously you have your own art thing that you're doing on the side too. So
Mhm.
what are
Yeah.
the plans for the future as far as that goes and the website and all that?
Um, a man makes plans, God laughs. It's tough to make plans, to be honest with you. It's hard to know what's in store for us next. I mean, to be honest with you, I don't have any major plans. It's kind of like, um, I mean, I'm excited about the site making it to 30 next year. I think that sounds really cool. At one point, I was worried before it hit 20, I was worried
Uh-huh.
that it wouldn't. And at the time, I was like, I just want to take our oval logo and put a two in front of it, and that'd be amazing. I just want to make it to 20, you know.
Now
Um,
you're like I can't wait
but
to put a 3 in front of it.
you know it, I'm like, I'm gonna put a three in front of it. It's gonna be awesome. But no, I mean, yeah, when you're this close, it's like, all right, it's totally in God's hands. But that'd be awesome to make it to 30 at this point. But I mean, he could say at any point in time to move on from it, but he hasn't yet. At least I haven't felt that calling to move on from it. So,
So I mean, like,
um,
if you did feel that calling, are you gonna just totally shut the site down? Or are you gonna hand it off to somebody
dude, I
else?
have no idea. I have not thought of that far ahead. I have no idea. I would like to think no, but I have no clue.
Because like you're
Um,
kind of like one of my resources. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Listen, there's no plans to shut it down. But that's awesome to hear that. No, I mean, yeah, I don't even want to think that. I'll end up in like a full-on panic mode, anxious, just even thinking about what are you gonna do? No, no, it's just kind of uh plugging along and keeping it up. I mean, always hope that um God can use whatever the heck I end up doing, I guess. Um, so yeah, I don't know. I know that's a really vague, probably uninteresting answer, but yeah.
no, it's fine, man. That's a perfectly reasonable answer. I mean, you just
Honestly, I couldn't have predicted that any of where we're at now, to be honest with you. I mean, I think way back when I always hoped that JFH would keep going. I mean, I think um yeah, I mean, at one point we thought about moving to Nashville before we
uh
had our son. Um, and just kind of like because I feel really removed from the industry being in Pennsylvania. But I mean, everything has changed so much. I don't even know how much seems to be all that based in Nashville these days anyway. I mean, it's probably still relatively the hub, but like it's just changed so much. Um, but yeah, no, I mean, I'm excited to keep doing it. I don't know what God has in store, but I'm hoping that I stay obedient to whatever He wants. And
right.
I feel like a little bit of a waiting period of like knowing what is coming next. But at the end of the day, I need to just trust Him and keep doing what I'm doing, what I'm called to do, I guess, you know?
Right. I got you. Yeah, that makes sense. So, talking about God, then, how do you obviously you have a lot of stuff going on in your life. How
Yeah.
do you keep spiritually fed? I guess is the best way to say it, and keep yourself in order and whatnot.
Yeah. A lot of worrying. I'm mostly kidding. It's funny, like, a lot of prayer, devotionals. My son and I have a nice little ritual of uh, prayer and devotions every night before bed. And um, the only reason why my wife doesn't usually join us is she actually has about a bit of narcolepsy. So she falls asleep super easily. So when he was little, she'd pass out in his room and he'd get really upset and like she'd be asleep on his bed and he's trying to fall asleep kind of thing. So anyway, that's why that's the only reason why it's me and him and not the three of us. Anyway, um, so I mean that's always nice and we found a really good new church last year and have been going regularly, and that's been awesome. I actually went a period of not going to church as much because I couldn't shut off the critical, um, like the hearing the worship music and having that critique, that going on in your head, and I couldn't get past it, and I felt horrible. I felt like a monster. 'Cause I'm like sitting there and I'm like, oh my gosh, this is terrible or whatever. Like it was awful. So, when I found my way back to a different church last year, I'm like, this feels right. Like it feels right, feels like the right place, feels like the right time. So that was really cool. But yeah, I mean, and also just surrounding yourself with the right people and influences and stuff. So I mean, hopefully that answers your question, but
Yeah,
it,
no, no,
it's
that's
it's it's tough not to be hard on yourself about, spiritual matters too. So it's kind of a matter of learning to show yourself more grace, I guess, too. And that's been kind of an ongoing thing
yeah.
for me for a long time, I guess. But also, yeah, just having friends and family that you can encourage each other spiritually is really important. And I thankfully can say I have that. So I'm, yeah, super thankful and grateful about that.
I got you. I mean, I totally agree with you. This Lent, I don't know if you observe like the Lenten season or not, or do anything for Lent, but I know I've
Hmm.
been really hardcore this Lent, and it's
Yeah,
it's been rough. It's been it's
really.
been like, ooh, yeah. I said I was not gonna eat fat. I said I was gonna fast today, and I kind of cheated a little bit. I guess I shouldn't do that again.
Oh, yeah. Well, we're all human, man.
Yeah.
In what other ways? Is it just the fasting that's
Well,
kind of tripped you up?
it's it. Well, it's not. Well, also, I try to be very disciplined in when I pray, and sometimes I let other stuff get in the way, and it just.
Oh, totally.
But it's just one of those things, Just live and learn, get better at things, right?
Yeah.
Um, that's my main things though. It's nothing crazy, nothing anybody else hasn't dealt with, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I hear you.
So,
Yeah, and
uh,
no, go ahead.
yeah. So you mentioned you found a new church. So now,
Yeah.
did y'all settle on like a specific denomination, or is this more non-denominational, or?
I mean, to me, denomination isn't important.
Yeah.
Like, it's an Assembly of God church, but to me, I don't really care so much about denomination. Like, it's what's being taught. It's
Right.
you know, the truths
Is
of the biblical truths or whatever.
is are
Plus,
they
it's funny.
charismatic
Uh,
or like Pentecostal?
I think it's kind of charismatic, but
Okay.
but they're a little more chill. Like, it's more
Okay.
my speed. I mean, I'm not. I don't come from charismatic roots, and I'm an
Right.
introvert. So, there's a there's a lot of like pushing past comfort zones or whatever.
Because
But
I've heard of them before. I've just never
yeah,
been to any of their churches. I grew up
yeah,
Methodist, and I I guess I'm kind
Oh,
of
cool.
calling myself Anglican now, but
Yeah.
yeah.
I mean, I think what matters most is that it's a good church home. They're teaching the right stuff, and that
Right.
it feeds you, and that you know, are, I don't know, the right people around you and
Yeah.
stuff. Yeah, I mean, it's funny, like a friend of mine was getting married last year, and his pastor officiated it, and I don't know how. Oh, and that was the church that they go to, and I was like, you know what? Let's check it out. It'd be good
I got you.
to try something new, and then it just felt right. It's yeah, and it's nice when that happens because I don't take for granted the fact that it felt right. Like that doesn't always happen. You go places, you do certain things, you're like, this doesn't feel right. But it everything just really clicked, and it was like, whoa, okay, I feel like this is where I'm supposed to be now. So, and to be honest with you, being Catholic, I was baptized as an infant.
Right.
So going to churches throughout the years, it was like they talk about baptism. I'm like, I was already baptized, I don't need it again. And then also like being introverted, I'm like, I don't want to get up in front of people. I don't want to get dunked in front of a whole bunch of people. And then like a couple months after going to this church, they're like, we're gonna do baptisms, and I'm like, I'm ready. Let's do this. Like let's do all three of us. It was just crazy how it just felt right, you know. And then to also it felt good being obedient after all those years.
Oh yeah, I guess I get what you're saying. I mean, I personally, well, I was adult baptized, but that's just
Yeah.
because I came into the faith when I was a teenager.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, I do actually believe in infant baptism. Though that is,
Yeah.
yeah, but yeah, no,
I
I
mean,
get it though. It's
I think
it's
it was I think
it's
it's,
one of
and I'm
those
not
things
knocking.
like you gotta like. I'm not gonna critique someone for having a different opinion over it. Like,
Right, exactly. No, and I'm not knocking infant baptism, but it was one of those things where I felt like I was being guilted over the years, like,
right,
you haven't made the conscious decision as an
right,
adult and
which
believer. And I'm like, all right. No, but like it finally felt right last year, and I'm like, okay, I
and
think it's
obviously
time.
because I'm not someone who was baptized as an infant, I
Right.
can't relate to that because
Yeah.
obviously I was baptized as a teenager, so I actually
Yeah.
did have to make the conscious decision, right?
Right.
So,
Yeah. Yeah.
but
No,
yeah,
I honestly I see both sides of the street in that on that argument. But for the longest time I felt like, well, what difference does it make? I was baptized when I was an infant, and here I am. What difference does it make?
right,
So
of course, naturally, and we're. Obviously, this is not a theological episode today, so we're not going to get all into that. But okay, so you've obviously listened to a lot of different genres of music.
yeah.
So now I've got to ask, what is your favorite genre of music?
Um I get I guess like I don't know. I'm so picky when it comes to like vocals and stuff. I know. Like I want to say rock, pop rock, somewhere around there is my sweet spot. My favorite active band is Switchfoot right now. I mean, I've listened to them since they started. So the fact that they're still around making music and have made music through all of the like big points in my life, is huge to me. Um, for the longest time, my favorite all-time band was Audio Adrenaline, the original version before they rebooted it.
Uh huh.
Um, and I still absolutely love them. PFR is one that I keep coming back to, and they're working on new music, which I'm so excited about. And they had broken up for a long time. And then there's bands like Flyleaf that really scratch an itch, and I love Lacey's voice. Um,
I was just listening to them this afternoon. Although I will tell you, talking about Flyleaf, Flyleaf's good. I like Emery. I don't know if you've ever heard of Emery before,
oh, of course, yeah.
because they're
No,
from
I've never heard of
they're
them.
from South
Yeah, no,
Carolina.
definitely.
They're from South
Yeah.
Carolina, which is the
Oh, no,
state I grew up in. So of course,
I mean,
anytime
we've covered.
something comes out of South
We've
Carolina, I got to be on top of that, you know?
we've covered them since the beginning too, and then of course they've ever since they decided to be a little more almost like I don't know if you would say deliberately controversial, consciously controversial, that it's been tougher for us to justify covering them as much. But um another band I'm sucker for is Isley. I really like their stuff. That's more like an indie sound. I don't even know if they're still around anymore. They don't seem to be. Um, I'm trying to think. But I mean, I have like a playlist on my phone of
Right.
like everything I've liked over the years, and I just keep that on shuffle basically. So it's easy to um just keep listening to stuff that I already like. But there's not a ton that's new that I listen to. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's hard to find
Did you ever,
stuff I like.
this is going to be a kind of random. Did you ever listen to a bunch of Striper when you were growing up?
I didn't. And I
Really?
have there's a lot of stuff. There's a bunch of stuff that do like Striper. You know what's funny? I listen to Michael Sweet's solo stuff more than I listen to Striper.
Hmm.
Because when I got into Christian music, Striper was gone at the time,
Uh huh.
and Michael was doing solo stuff. So I definitely listened to solo Michael Sweet stuff. But even with them coming back, I just couldn't get into it. So Michael, if you're listening, sorry. But uh I did love Bride way back in the day in the 90s. They still like those like their 90s records were primo. Um but that was out of my musical comfort zone. My brother was really into them, and then my parents, I guess he nagged them to take us to a Bride concert, and when by the time we left, we all loved Bride. They just were amazing live. But yeah, yeah, rock in general, I guess. But again, I just feel so picky about,
Right.
it's tough.
You
There
you
isn't
just
like
got
a
too
genre I left
you've
everything.
got too discerning of an ear for
I hate it.
things.
I'm not proud of it. Is it that way? I'm not proud of it at all. Yeah, I guess. I don't know.
I
But it's funny
got you.
because of everybody has such strong opinions, differing ears towards music. There's people who think my taste in music is horrible, and it's fine. I remember going out to eat with a group of friends, and the one girls, I guess they were engaged or dating at the time. I think he was a manager for a band. Like it's weird. Like it's not even like, I mean, this area is just not Christian Music Central, but she met him, I think, at like Purple Door Music Festival, which was like an indie rock, like a creation, but just the rock stage, an entire festival like that. And Emery played there several times actually. And anyway, I think he was the manager for Anne Berlin. They're another band I absolutely love, by the way. But I remember he was asking me, I could tell the way that he was asking me about my musical taste, there was already an attitude in his approach to the question. And I'm like, yeah, I love like Project 86 and like these bands and whatever. And then afterwards, he's like, you have horrible taste in music. And I'm like, thanks, man. That's great.
Wow, thanks for
You
your
know?
unsolicited opinion.
Exactly. Like I don't know. Like it's one of those experiences where you're like, I don't think I'd ever want to treat someone else like that. That's such a horrible thing. Like just humor me. Humor me. Don't tell me that I have the worst taste in music you've ever heard of or whatever, but
Right.
just being like, "Oh, that's cool. Well, I like this."
Well,
We can have a discussion without
I
you being a punk.
I can sympathize because when I was growing up, in middle school, high school, I was
Yeah.
one of the, and I'm quoting here, emo kids.
Not that there's anything wrong with that.
No, but I also grew up in the rural South where pretty much everybody listened to pop, country, and rap. So my entire friend group in middle school and high school was built almost exclusively around the fact that we all listened to punk, emo, and metal. And we were the
Yeah.
six kids that listened to it.
Nice. Yeah.
So,
Those kids always stuck together in school.
yes.
Yeah, I do. Yeah.
Stick together, get bullied together, hang out
Yep.
together.
That's right. Yeah, totally.
So,
Absolutely.
But okay, last question because we are pushing an
Sure.
hour now.
Okay.
Um, what advice would you give to anyone who's looking to kind of do what you did with Jesus Freak Hideout?
Wow. It's a great question. I don't know anybody who would want to do. No. Um, I guess just I mean, if it's what you want to do, if you feel called to do it, and it's what God wants you to do, perseverance. Not giving up. I mean, I had times early on when um, I remember most of the content on JFH at one point was like the front page. It was super long, and I accidentally like erased it one day. So I had to recreate like a huge chunk of the site. And then I think might have been another time where like Angel Fire crashed and I lost like I don't think it was the whole site, but most of the site or something. So I had to start over and rebuild it from scratch. It's stuff like that. I don't know if they were just like tests early on to be like, how dedicated are you to this? You know what I mean? Like, are you in this for the long haul kind of thing? Um, but surrounding yourself with the right people, having the right, not doing it all by yourself. Um, and perseverance, I guess.
I got you. Solid answer. So,
Sweet.
before I pray us out, do you have any questions for me?
What do you typically listen to these days yourself?
Typically, well, a little bit of everything, I guess. I'm not as much of a genre purist as I was when I was younger,
Right.
which has opened up my avenues for musical enjoyment significantly.
Absolutely. Yeah.
But typically, I do listen to Flyleaf a lot now, and
Nice.
I listen to a lot of John Mayer. Totally
Really?
real juxtaposition. Yeah, dude, I love John Mayer, which is very ironic because my wife loves Taylor Swift.
Oh my
So,
goodness.
so
Nice.
it's kind of funny, right? Because of the history there.
Right.
I
That's
also
funny.
listen to a lot of Anne Boleyn.
Nice.
They're really good. I listen to a lot of Emery. I listen to early Under Oath, not the new stuff.
Right.
And honestly, a lot nowadays, I find myself, replaying a lot of my old middle school playlist, frankly.
Right? What is up with that? I
Well,
mean,
it's just,
I don't
I
know if
think
it's
it's just better. I mean, I honestly think the production
yeah.
quality is just better. Like, the heart's
Yeah.
there as opposed to
Hmm.
a lot of stuff. And even from some of the same bands, the newer stuff just feels kind of like it's going to make me sound old. Like they sold out a little bit
Yeah.
to make money.
They're trying to survive. Yeah, they're trying to survive. I know. And that's the tricky part too, is like, do you want the artists to survive or do you want them to keep making music that you like? And I think there's a like a really narrow sweet spot that these artists can evolve and make music that you will also like and stay true to themselves without having to redo like the same thing over and over. Not like make the same albums over and over like Skillet has been. I loved Skillet when I was a kid and even into my early 20s, but I mean, they just I don't know what's going on. But I'm happy for them being successful, but my goodness, they're just not making music for I guess me or whatever. But that makes when you mentioned Amerlin, have you heard new stuff with the new singer?
Did they get a new singer? I didn't know they got a new singer. See,
So
I pretty
Maddie
much.
Mullins from Memphis Mayfire
Uh
is their
huh.
new singer.
Okay. So now,
Yeah.
have they actually dropped a new album with the new singer?
So they did two EPs with Steven like 2 years ago, and then they put them together last year and added two new songs with Maddie. And then just like a couple weeks ago, they released the entire album of Never Take Friendship Personal, re-recorded with Maddie on vocals. The whole album.
Oh, okay, interesting. See, because I've been listening to their stuff pretty consistently, but I mean,
Yeah,
I'll just put it on shuffle, and I can't. I'm gonna be honest, I don't know that I can tell a difference.
interesting.
But
Well,
like,
then you
I also
probably
don't
aren't.
have the discerning ear that you do. So,
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's a good chance that you're not hearing any of their newer stuff or whatever. Might not be
Maybe
showing up
not.
in the mix.
Maybe I guess maybe I need to go intentionally listen to their new stuff and see if I can tell a
Yeah,
difference. Because I mean, obviously, it's one guy and now it's another guy. It's not like a Linkin
yeah,
Park situation where they have a female, where they had a male vocalist.
right.
You
Yeah.
know.
No, thankfully I haven't, it's not that. It's really different. I mean, I'm super partial to Steven, but I mean, I guess I'm happy for them that they can find a new life with a different singer, but it's still weird. Anyway, I just was curious what your thoughts were on it. We could always talk about it after you check it out sometime.
Yeah. Oh yeah, absolutely. And I'm gonna try to have you on, but you know, my big thing has been trying to widen my horizons a little bit, get more into the independent artists and stuff that are around
Nice.
nowadays.
Yeah.
Which is partially what this series of interviews that I've started up is kind of centered on. I mean, obviously, you're not necessarily a musician, but
No.
you know, you are very in tune with the musical industry just by
Eh,
virtue of the
I
fact
try.
you run Jesus Freak Hideout. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, that's kind of what I've been trying to do is kind of spotlight some of the more independent Christian artists so that
Nice.
they
That's
can maybe
awesome.
hopefully get a little bit more playtime,
Yeah,
you know,
definitely.
on
No,
people's
they need you.
streaming services nowadays because people really don't listen to the radio anymore. So,
Good.
yeah. But anyway, let me. That's kind of all I had for you. And
Awesome.
if there's, unless you have anything else you wanted to ask me, I'm gonna go ahead and pray us out.
Sounds good, man. Go for it.
Gracious Father, we pray for Thy holy Catholic Church. Fill it with all truth, and all truth with all peace. Where it is corrupt, purify it. Where it is error, direct it. Where in anything it is amiss, reform it. Where it is right, strengthen it. Where it is in want, provide for it. Where it is divided, reunite it. For the sake of Jesus Christ, Thy Son, our Savior. Amen.
Amen.
Thanks for tuning in to today's episode of the Down South Salvation Podcast. I hope you found our discussion insightful and engaging. If you enjoyed the show, please consider liking this episode and sharing it with your friends and family. It really helps me reach more listeners like you. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel so you never miss an episode. You can also follow me on X, formerly Twitter, at DS Salvation and Instagram at Down South Salvation for updates and more. For additional content and to stay updated, find me on YouTube, Substack, and all major podcast platforms at the Down South Salvation Podcast. Your support means the world to me, and I look forward to bringing you more exciting episodes soon. Until next time, stay blessed.